Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today we're discussing a lovely FP Journe Chronometre A Resonance. 40 millimeters in rose gold. This one features a rare full matching factory rose gold bracelet. It's 40 millimeters in diameter, 8.8 millimeters thick. From lug tip to lug tip, it's about 48.2 millimeters. And if you measure it from end link to end link, the total distance across the wrist is 54.9 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, the watch does wear larger on the bracelet. Because the end links are so long, the watch gets to the point where I would say on the bracelet, you want to wear it on a wrist my size or larger. Whereas if this were on a strap, I would say you could wear it on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. You can really see how long those bracelet end links are, especially down the barrel. When viewed from over the top, they're actually encroaching beyond the edge of my wrist. So that overhang is something I usually consider to be a no-go, but it does have a generously downward slant on each side. Those end links are downward curved, so I can pull this off, but just. Again, if your wrist is any smaller than mine, you want to wear this on the strap. But it is flat, and with a domed bezel, it will slide easily underneath a cuff of any kind. It's a beautiful bracelet, handsome, integrated with a conforming end link, all of high polish. You can see that there's a little bit of a splayed split to the angle of the links. They are angled inboard and downward on each side. And then we have full polish with plenty of gaps between the links to avoid pinching skin, pulling hair, or trapping wrist heat. The removable links that are present are fixed in place using screws. You can see that we have a intermediate sized link in there, in case you find yourself in between sizes. And then we have a friction fit double deployant clasp that is a sequential close, one side before the other, just like that. He invented and made it, and it's no lie. The case band is standard Journe, which means integrated lugs that turn down almost 90 degrees from the case band horizontal, and a mid-case defined by the overlapping flange of the bezel and the case back. It's all of high polish. The bezel is domed. We have the characteristic knurled Journe double dimple crown, not once but twice. This crown is used for synchronizing the two independent seconds displays, so it takes resonance about 7 to 10 minutes to couple the two independent sides of the watch, and the seconds hands might not be synchronized when that occurs. So you resynchronize them with this little flyback down at 4 o'clock. The actual winding and setting of the watch is done through the crown up at 12 o'clock, and these two time zones, one with a scrolling display in a 24-hour format, one with a conventional 12-hour format, these can be set independently for use as a travel time function. We have a power reserve indicator, though there are two separate barrels and two separate drivetrains, escapements, and movements in this case. One power reserve indicator is used for both, and it has a manual wind 42-hour power reserve. This is also a marine chronometer style power reserve indicator, which means that it actually moves towards zero the longer you wind it, because with a marine chronometer, the deck clocks or navigation clocks on a ship had to be wound exactly 24 hours apart. So after 24 hours, you wind it invariably. So it was important to know how many hours since the last winding, not how many hours until it stopped working. That's why a chronometer would always have a power reserve that would show you hours since winding, and that is exactly how this works. When it indicates 0, it means you have just fully wound the watch. The dial is made of white gold, the case and the bracelet are rose gold, and the movement also made of solid rose gold, so this is a weighty machine in the hand. The bezels framing the time displays, they are polished steel, and then we have polished steel screws on the dial side, including those that hold the dial to the movement. And this was something that was present on the original Journe Tourbillon Remontoire in 1999. Controversial at the time, it's become very influential today. And then we have those lovely blued, tapered Journe hands. We'll open up the bracelet and take a look at the movement, which is the 1499. The reference number means it is 14 French lignes in diameter, 99 meaning that 1999 was the year work started on the movement, and you can see this is the 0.3, 1499.3, meaning it's the third revision of the movement. Now from mid-2004, they gained rose gold calibers, and you can see two separate barrels, drivetrains, escapements, and balances. and both are free sprung, beaten away at 3 hertz, adjusted in 6 positions, chronometer style, and then 1 additional position, because remember, chronometers are only adjusted in 5 positions. All this on 40 pivot joules, and then you vary the distance between these balances using the steel and rose gold rack and pinion system. And you can see that there is a fixing screw that locks this particular balance cock in place after you've used that gold pinion screw to move it relative to that other balance. Now, here's the idea behind the resonance. It's a dual time watch, but that's not really the point. This takes the pendulum clock principle of synchronizing resonance. And F.P. Journe, after years of research, he tried to make a pocket watch. I think that was his 3rd pocket watch ever. It didn't work, but he eventually proved that you could have a wristwatch, Swiss lever, balance-based resonance system. And so these two things begin to interact with each other so that they synchronize and beat in opposition to the point that they are tied together, varying by no more than about 5 seconds maximum per 24 hours relative to each other. Because they're beating in opposition with equal and opposite energy, if one slows, generally the other by an opposite margin, because it's in an opposite position, it will speed it back up. And if one speeds up, the other will slow it back down. So it is a self-reinforcing kind of chronometry where these auto-correct and stay synchronized to each other. It's almost like magic. There's a very slight parasitic emanation of energy and vibration from the escapements and the balance oscillations, and that's what actually synchronizes these. All this is 30 meters water resistant. You can see this one has both French and Swiss hallmarks. You can see the French hallmarks and the Eleanor maker's mark right there. And then you can see the Swiss hallmark right there. From 1983 through about mid-2008, Journe cases were made by Eleanor outside Paris. He eventually bought the company, moved it to Geneva, turned it into his case factory, Boîtier de Genève. And so it was about mid-2008 they stopped stamping those French hallmarks and the Eleanor maker's mark on these cases. Now this watch, the Resonance Generation 3, came out in 2010. It was made through 2018. Only the very earliest examples, and I mean the very earliest examples, could have gotten an Eleanor case because they stopped making them in 2008. In theory, they started making the series in 2010. So this was a very lucky watch from a collectability standpoint to get one of those cases in this generation of the watch. And I think this is the most underrated modern Journe watch because the parking meter or the winking watch aesthetic of the dial was controversial when the watch was first launched. Today, a lot of people are beginning to realize that perhaps more of these could have been sold if it had had a more mainstream aesthetic to it. And because fewer were sold, it turned out to be a fairly uncommon watch. And this exceptionally early build with an Eleanor case is even more impressive on that basis. And you can see how that scrolling 24-hour format second time zone works. And that's how you adjust the 12-hour time zone. It's a really cool watch and a world premiere to do this in a wristwatch format. If you're going to buy a Journe, get a Tourbillon Remontoir or Resonance. That's the twin pillar setup of the brand to this day. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.